It was a normal Tuesday morning when the world stopped for Jenny. She had stood up to present her latest business idea. Her heart pounding, her palms sweaty, but her eyes glowing with ambition. She had worked tirelessly to build her brand from nothing, rising through the ranks of entrepreneurship with grit and grace. But as she spoke, something inside her gave way. Her vision blurred, her knees buckled, and before anyone could react, she collapsed right in front of the boardroom table. That single moment changed everything. Rushed to the hospital in an ambulance, Jenny was diagnosed with a rare and aggressive illness. The doctors were honest. Her condition was terminal without immediate treatment. Her family rushed to her side, devastated by the news. Her mother wept silently. Her father paced the halls in disbelief. And her younger sister, Sandra, sat beside the bed, holding her hand like a true sister would. And then there was Edward, her husband, the man who had promised to love her in sickness and in health. He stood at the foot of the bed, silent, unmoving. His face showed no tears, only a strange calmness. He kissed her forehead gently and whispered, "I'll take care of everything." But he didn't mean what everyone thought he meant. While Jenny lay unconscious, slipping in and out of awareness, Edward began pulling away. He stopped answering calls from her friends. He refused visits from her colleagues and slowly, quietly, he turned his attention to Sandra. No one noticed at first. How could they? Their grief was too heavy. But Edward had been watching Sandra for years, admiring her youth, her energy, her laughter. He told himself it was fate, that life had given him a second chance while taking the first one away. Jenny's condition worsened. One night, after a sudden medical emergency, she slipped into a coma. The hospital lights flickered above her still body. Machines beeped steadily. Outside, rain poured down like the heavens were mourning, too. And somewhere down the hall, Edward made a call. "Come," he said softly, "it's time." Sandra arrived minutes later, eyes red, but not from sadness, from anticipation. Together, they forged a new path, one built on betrayal and secrecy. Edward manipulated hospital records to limit access to Jenny's room. He claimed it was for privacy, for healing. But in truth, he was erasing her presence. No one outside their inner circle knew how bad things really were. Even Sonia, Jenny's childhood friend and closest confidant, couldn't get past the nurse's station without being turned away. Meanwhile, Sandra began crafting a double life online. Publicly, she posted black and white photos of herself with captions like "grieving my sister's fight and praying for miracles." Privately, she shared smiling selfies with Edward on hidden accounts, vacation trips, candid dinners, stolen moments in hotel suites. They were building a life while Jenny fought for hers. But what they didn't know was that someone had started watching them. Someone who remembered promises made long ago. Sonia, Jenny's oldest friend, the one who had stood beside her through every heartbreak, every setback, every dream. When she couldn't reach Jenny, she didn't stop trying. She hired a private investigator. She dug through social media posts. She pieced together inconsistencies in Sandra's story and found patterns in Edward's behavior. What she uncovered chilled her to the bone. But instead of rushing forward with accusations, Sonia chose silence. She became a ghost in the shadows, working behind the scenes to help Jenny. She paid for experimental treatments using anonymous donations. She contacted specialists overseas. She arranged secret therapy sessions during the few times Jenny regained consciousness. And then one day, something miraculous happened. Jenny opened her eyes. Not just briefly, not just for a moment. She stayed awake. She smiled. She remembered and she listened. Sonia held her hand and whispered everything. The betrayal, the lies, the marriage, everything. Jenny didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply closed her eyes and made a promise. A promise to rise again, to reclaim her life, and to make those who betrayed her feel the weight of justice. Jenny began her recovery in silence. No public declarations, no dramatic speeches, just quiet determination. She knew she couldn't rush back into the world. Not yet. Her body was still weak and the betrayal still fresh. But Sonia stayed by her side, guiding her through each step like a shadow that never left. The first few weeks were brutal. Simple tasks, walking across the room, holding a cup, speaking for more than a few minutes, left Jenny exhausted. But with every small victory, her strength grew. The therapy sessions were grueling, but she pushed through. The emotional scars ran deeper than the physical ones, but she faced them head-on. Sonia had arranged everything, a private rehabilitation center far from the city, away from prying eyes. It was there, surrounded by nature and silence, that Jenny began to rebuild herself piece by piece. As her body healed, so did her mind. She read books on finance, strategy, and psychology. She studied Edward's business moves from the past years, learning his patterns, his weaknesses. She watched videos of his recent interviews, analyzing the man he had become, the man who had turned his back on her without a second thought. She wasn't just recovering, she was preparing. Meanwhile, outside her hidden sanctuary, Edward and Sandra lived their new life in full view. They held lavish dinners, traveled to exotic locations, and hosted extravagant parties. To the world, they were the golden couple. Tragic lovers brought together by fate after heartbreak. Sandra played the grieving sister to perfection, posting emotional tributes to Jenny online while secretly mocking her behind closed doors. Edward, now running the business Jenny had built from scratch, basked in his new freedom. He expanded the company, changed its name, and positioned himself as a self-made success story. Investors flocked to him. Media outlets featured him, and with Sandra by his side, he believed he had won life's biggest gamble. But all the while, Jenny was moving in silence. With Sonia's help, she accessed old business contacts under a new identity, Mira. She started investing quietly, acquiring shares in companies connected to Edward's empire. She funded startups that would later compete with his firm. She built a network of allies, unseen but powerful. No one recognized her. Her hair had grown back differently. Her style had changed. Even her voice, weakened by illness, had taken on a new tone. She was no longer the woman who had collapsed in that boardroom. She was someone new, someone dangerous. By the time she was strong enough to return to the public eye, Edward's business was thriving, but unstable. His decisions had grown reckless. His reputation was built on borrowed time, and Jenny knew exactly how to bring it crashing down. She didn't rush. She didn't announce her return. Instead, she waited for the perfect moment, a major business expo, an event where Edward would pitch his latest venture to top investors. It was going to be his biggest deal yet. But what he didn't know was that one of the lead judges had just arrived. Dressed in a sleek black suit, standing tall with fire in her eyes, Jenny stepped into the venue like she had never been gone. Because this wasn't just a comeback, this was justice. The expo hall buzzed with energy. Investors in tailored suits moved between booths, exchanging business cards and murmuring about potential deals. Startup founders paced nervously, rehearsing their pitches one last time before stepping onto the grand stage. The air was thick with ambition, competition, and the scent of freshly printed brochures. And at the center of it all stood Edward, confident, smiling, dressed in a suit that screamed success. This was his moment. His new company, built on betrayal and deception, was about to secure a massive investment. He had worked tirelessly for this. Sandra stood by his side, flashing her perfect smile to the cameras, capturing every second for their social media pages. They were the picture of power, love, and triumph. On the judging panel sat three influential figures, names known across industries, but none of them mattered to Edward as much as the fourth seat. Empty. It had been reserved at the last minute by an anonymous investor who had requested full discretion until arrival. A nameless force with deep pockets and undeniable influence. Edward shrugged it off. He didn't need anyone's approval. His pitch was flawless, his confidence unshakable. Then the doors opened. A hush fell over the crowd as a woman stepped inside, tall, poised. Her presence alone sent ripples through the room. Jenny. No one recognized her at first, not with a sleek hairstyle, the sharp suit, the calm fire in her eyes. She walked toward the front like she owned the space, her heels clicking against the floor like a heartbeat. Edward saw her and everything stopped. His breath caught, his hands tightened into fists. His face paled. She wasn't supposed to be here. She was supposed to be gone, dead, forgotten. But there she stood, alive, stronger than ever. Sandra gasped audibly. Her phone slipped from her hand and crashed to the floor. Jenny took her seat at the head of the panel and looked directly at Edward. "This," she said, voice steady and clear, "is what betrayal built." Her words echoed through the microphone, silencing the entire hall. "I watched you take everything I built. I listened as you lied to the world, and now I'm here to see how far those lies can go." Gasps spread through the crowd. Phones began recording. Whispers turned into chaos. Edward tried to speak, but no words came. Jenny pressed a button on her tablet. A screen behind him lit up. Photos, videos, proof. Secret messages between Edward and Sandra. Hidden accounts revealing their lavish lifestyle while she fought for her life. Hospital records altered to hide her condition. Financial documents showing how he had siphoned funds from the business she built. Everything exposed. In real time, the audience watched as Edward's empire crumbled before his eyes. He staggered back, shaking his head. "No, no, this isn't possible." Jenny stood. "It is." She turned to the other judges. "I have seen many pitches in my time, but never one built entirely on stolen dreams." With a final glance at Edward, she stood tall. "My name is Jenny Mirror, and this company, it was mine long before it was his mirror." That was the name she had used to quietly acquire majority shares in Edward's firm. Investors began whispering among themselves. Some stood and left immediately. Others stared at Edward in disbelief. He was finished. Sandra tried to pull him away, but he stood frozen, staring at the woman he had once called wife. Jenny turned and walked out without another word. Outside, Sonia waited with a car. As they drove off, Jenny exhaled deeply, not with anger, not with sadness, but with peace. She had not come for revenge. She had come for justice, and in doing so she had reclaimed her life. Not as the woman she once was, but as the woman she had become. Months later, Jenny launched a new foundation supporting women fighting serious illnesses while rebuilding their careers. She mentored young entrepreneurs, funded research, and gave hope to those who had lost everything. People asked how she stayed so strong. She simply smiled and said, "Because I learned that sometimes the darkest nights lead to the brightest mornings." And somewhere far away, Edward and Sandra faded into obscurity, left with nothing but the weight of their choices. So if you've ever felt betrayed, forgotten, or broken, remember this story. Because no matter how deep the fall, there is always a way back. Betrayal may wound, but resilience heals and empowers. No matter how deeply someone's trust is broken, true strength comes from within. Jenny didn't let betrayal define her. She used it as fuel to rise stronger, proving that even in the darkest moments, the human spirit can rebuild and reclaim its power. Silence and patience can be more powerful than immediate anger. While rage might push someone to react recklessly, Jenny chose silence, strategy, and timing. She rebuilt herself quietly and struck at the perfect moment, showing that sometimes the most impactful victories come not from loud confrontations, but from careful planning and self-control. Truth always finds a way to surface. Lies and deception may seem successful for a time, but truth has a way of revealing itself when least expected. Edward and Sandra thought they had erased Jenny, but truth doesn't stay buried forever. Integrity and honesty, even in the face of betrayal, ultimately lead to justice. True loyalty is revealed in the darkest moments. When everyone else turned away, Sonia stood by Jenny. Not for recognition, not for reward, but out of genuine love and loyalty. In a world where some will walk away when you no longer serve their purpose, those who stay are the ones worth holding on to forever. Real friends don't shine only in good times. They fight for you in your silence and sufferings. If you were inspired by Jenny's powerful journey of resilience, betrayal, and ultimate justice, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs strength today. And most importantly, subscribe to our channel for more life-changing stories that inspire hope, courage, and transformation. Thank you so much for watching. Stay blessed. Until next time.